High quota runs. You've probably heard this term before. Either it was because you watched a guide, or maybe you've even performed one yourself. No matter the case, you've come here because you want a better strategy than the one you've been told or made. Fear not. I have a strategy that is much different and also, in my opinion, better than the ones they've concocted. Let's jump right into it. First, quota. At the very start, you have access to 6 moons, so naturally, we're going only to Assurance. Why Assurance? Well, I will admit that this is mostly preference. Assurance also has a few things going for it that other moons simply don't. Firstly is that you can jump off the ship into the fire exit, leading to a stunningly low travel distance to get into the facility. Secondly is just that, the facility. You are very likely to get the facility layout unlike VOW, and while the mineshaft doesn't suck that bad, I do find it to be worse overall due to the extremely close quarters environment, the fact that it's very easy to get lost, and worst of all is just that if you're unlucky, you will have to travel very far to find the mines. Lastly is that Assurance is just consistently good and easy. Clearing out all of Assurance is very doable. I almost always spend all 3 days on Assurance, with the only exception being if the weather is bad. If it's rainy, however, I will still go to Assurance. In the case that the weather is horrible, I will go to VOW or Adamance. Now, after quota 1, I aim to have $2,400, which is a lot, I know, and it isn't always going to happen, especially if you're playing solo. In that case, it will take a lot of attempts to achieve, but that's why I've created 3 workarounds I will sometimes use. Firstly is just to use the overtime bonus. If you didn't quite make that $2,400, then the overtime bonus will likely cover it. Secondly is just to use quota 2 to go to Rend. Rend isn't a waste of time, as profits are good there, but if you really want to reach the quotas in the 5 digits, then it'd be better off to just get that $2,400. Lastly, which is my most used workaround, is to get... Lastly, which is my most used workaround, is to get $1,870 instead. The reason why is because you'll have enough money to get the company cruiser and go to Artifice and get the weed killer. Trust me, this strategy can be more effective than the jetpack. So why $2,400? Well, if you've watched my video on the jetpack, you probably already know where I'm going with this, but the $2,400 is so that you can buy a jetpack and go to Artifice. Believe me when I say that Artifice is the best moon in the game. Getting there with a jetpack will lead to extremely high profits. From here on out, you will literally just be at Artifice every quota. Now that has been established, here's how an average day on Artifice with 4 players should go. Right at the start of the day, your designated jetpacker will jump off the ship and fly to main entrance. Then one person will go to main entrance with them, and everyone else goes fire exit. Everyone should be splitting up through the facility to maximize the covered ground. We do this for 2 reasons. Number 1 is just to find more loot, and number 2 is to find the nutcracker faster. I shouldn't need to explain why getting a nutcracker is important, but I will anyway. The shotgun. Like, come on. This weapon will lower the risk of losing by a lot, which is important since Artifice is extremely deadly. Once any old birds are activated, they need to be locked up in the garages. Make sure not to lock up every old bird since they help kill the egregious amount of monsters. I would suggest leaving 2 old birds active because sometimes it's necessary, and it will save you time since you'll have to spend less time locking up old birds. While looking around the facility, if anyone finds a cash register, that needs to be brought back to the ship as soon as possible. At 4 PM, one person needs to offer themselves up and haul all the large objects back to the ship. Then, once it's very late at about 6 PM, the jetpack flyer needs to haul all the small objects back to the ship. Finally, at the very end, the jetpack is left behind at the ship while everyone but one person run back into the facility as a suicide move to possibly get more loot. Now that I've gone over what happens in a typical game, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Or rather, the elephant outside the room. outside monsters. Debatably, the outside monsters are the hardest part about this move. Loads of them spawn and they will slow down the game to a crawl. To deal with them, here's 2 tips. Number 1, and the one I wish more people would exercise, is literally just to leave all the small objects for the jetpack to carry. If you only have to carry a large object, then you'll be able to go very fast. Seriously, just leave the small stuff for the jetpack. Like, come on. Tip number 2 is to use old birds. I kinda said this earlier, but the old bird is very effective at killing monsters, so don't lock all of them up. Alright, now I want to get into some specifics, and by that I just mean tips. Firstly is how to lock up old birds. Doing this becomes simple with practice. I'd recommend watching my video on old birds if you really want to know how to be very good at this, since every shed is different, but here's the basic rundown. Aggro the old bird, walk around the corner, and wait for it to come to you. Then, right as it turns the corner, flick the lever, and leave the shed. It's that simple. Tip number 2. If you find an item with very low value like a $10 rubber duck, then leave it and grab something else. It's not worth your time. Tip number 3. I personally hate scrap metal because it's too heavy for its worth, so I recommend leaving it when you find it. This only applies to Assurance though, since you cannot get scrap metal on Artifice. Last tip. I would like to acknowledge zero-weight items. You can carry them alongside heavy objects, but it's far more risk-free, in my opinion, to have the jetpack flyer carry all the items, as long as the jetpacker is quite competent. Okay, let's talk about the last part of this video. Using the company cruiser on Artifice can prove difficult, but like I said at the start of the video, it can be more effective than the jetpack. Firstly, when you drive away from the ship, make sure that you have the weed killer on you and that you turn the magnet back on. Then drive to the fire exit and park precisely like this. Do the rest of the day like normal, only when it's late. I'm talking like as late as you possibly can go before it's too dangerous to even walk an inch outside. So around like 10 p.m. Weed up the cruiser and hop in. Then perform this difficult trick. Boost twice in quick succession, then boost to the left twice quickly. You should clear this tower with ease. After falling for just a moment, boost again, and you should land directly on the ship magnet that you activated at the start of the day. If done correctly, you've just hauled all the loot to the ship, including two-handed objects, practically instantly. There is one obvious problem with this trick, however. If you fail the jump, you will lose everything and the run is over. To prevent that skill issue, I'd recommend booting up some mods and just practicing constantly. I used to be able to do this trick consistently, but I haven't been practicing as much as I should. Alright, and that's everything. Hopefully now you can hit that beautiful 5-digit quota that I too have been so desperately trying to reach. If you liked the video, please consider becoming my 383rd subscriber. I want to make money doing this. Here's the 2 funny videos YouTube says you will like, and bye!